Hi, welcome to this session on academic word choices. My name is Chantel, and I'm the International Educational Assistant at Medicine Hat College. And recently, my job description was expanded to include domestic students as well. Well, let's get started. So, does your word choice reflect what you're trying to say? We want our word choice to be on target. So, during this session, we're going to discuss common problems and the solutions, and we'll also touch on transitions. So first, let's talk about common problems. I will list them here, and then we'll talk about each one and their solution individually. So first we have repetition, redundancy, exaggerated language, wordiness, passivity, informal language, and intensifiers. So let's start with repetition. So repetition is using the same word multiple times. There are 3 solutions we'll discuss today. You can choose a synonym, you can eliminate the word, and you can change your sentence. Let's look at choose a synonym. Sometimes repetition can prove your point, but other times, using the same word many times can be boring. Synonyms can give options for different words, but be careful. Synonyms can have a slightly different meaning. When you choose a synonym, look it up in the dictionary to see if it has a slightly different meaning or if it is used in a slightly different way. I like to use the Merriam-Webster online dictionary called the Learner's Dictionary. I find the definitions are clear and concise. Another solution is to eliminate the word. Let's take a look at the word that. That is often overused. So you can read the sentence without that and see if it makes sense. Let's take a look at an example. Are there words that you don't need? Let's try it without that. Are there words you don't need? So it's easier to read without that. So are there other words you don't need? Like of or up, or sometimes you don't need there are or there is or it is. So let's look at of. He fell off of the bike. We can simply say he fell off the bike. Or up. She climbed up the tree. You can simply say she climbed the tree. So eliminating these words eliminates clutter. And the next solution is to rearrange your sentence. So let's take a look at which. This is another word that we can use a lot. So which is used to add extra information to your sentence. If you find that you are using which too often, try rearranging your sentence. So let's take a look at this example. The hairy goat's opinion, which we all agree with, was that it was dangerous for the chimpanzee to juggle chainsaws while standing on one leg. And we also have that. So here's a picture of a chimpanzee standing on one leg juggling chainsaws. Very dangerous indeed. So let's look at option number 1. We all agreed with the hairy goat's opinion. It was dangerous for the chimpanzee to juggle chainsaws while standing on one leg. So we have a colon. And in a couple of weeks, I'll be doing a session on punctuation where we will discuss how to properly use a colon. And we also have we. So in our academic papers, we don't want to use personal pronouns. So let's take a look at option number 2. Evidently, the hairy goat's opinion was correct because, as it turned out, it was dangerous for the chimpanzee to juggle chainsaws while standing on one leg. So by rearranging our sentence, we've been able to eliminate which and that. So how many times have you used a word? So Word documents have little help here. So on the Home tab, you can click on Find, and you can see how many times you've used a word. So I've just done a little quick example here of dashing through the snow. So I want to see how many times I used bells. So you type it there in the bar and it'll bring up the results. So it says 5 times. So this is a nice little tool you can use to see which words you are repeating too often. Redundancy. So redundancy is repeating an idea when you don't need to. So let's take a look at these two solutions. You can eliminate words that repeat ideas, and you can eliminate ideas that are repeated. So let's take a look at the first solution. Eliminate words that repeat ideas. So here are some examples. Small in size or large in size. So we can take out in size because small means in size. Same with large. We can take out in size because we don't need it. We already know we're talking about the size. Evolve over time. So we can take out over time because evolve means to change over time. True facts. Which words do you think you can take out? Right, true, because facts are always true. Shouted loudly. Which word can we eliminate? Loudly, that's right, because if someone is shouting, we already know that they're being loud. Here's a longer sentence. We also need to consider the impact of environmentalism as well. So we have also and as well. We only need one, so let's take out also. We need to consider the impact of environmentalism as well. Eliminate ideas that are repeated. So here we have a silly example. The overly ripe banana lay before her. It was dark in color and soft to the touch. It wasn't ripe any longer. It was ripe a few days ago, but it isn't ripe now. Ripe bananas are yellowish green, but this one is dark brown. The dark brown, overly ripe banana, formerly yellow but now brown, is soft, too soft to eat. So we get it. The banana is too ripe to eat. So we want to eliminate ideas that are repeated. Let's take a look at the next common problem. Exaggerated language. So this is to describe something as bigger than it is. So the solution is to explain your points accurately. So what is exaggerated language? It's words like always, best, worst, never, the most, perfect, obviously. So you might think it's the worst, but your teacher or someone else may disagree. No one is always perfect because everyone makes mistakes. It may be obvious to you, but it may not be obvious to someone else. They might have a different perspective. When we use these exaggerated words, we're usually putting in our own bias. But if any of these words are true, you will need to prove it with facts and a citation. So let's take a look at some accurate words, like frequently, commonly, typically, often, evidently. So instead of obviously, use evidently, because the conclusion is based on the evidence you provided. And these words may also need citation. Another problem we'll look at is wordiness. So wordiness is using several words when one word will suffice. So the solution is to choose one word instead of 3 or 4. So let's take a look at some examples. On the left, we have the words that will be like 3 to 6 words. On the right is the simple option that you can choose. So I came to the realization that we can simply say, I realized that. She is of the opinion that, you can say, She thinks that. Concerning the matter of, you can simply say regarding. During the course of the year, so how do you think you can simplify this phrase? You can simply say during the year. In the event that, you can say if. In the process of, you can use while or during. Regardless of the fact that, you can say although. And you can see that changing your phrase to one word also eliminates the word that. Due to the fact that, you can change that to because. And that also eliminates the word that. If you find yourself using it too often, that's an added bonus. At that point in time, you can simply say then. So I hope this gives you some ideas of how choosing one word instead of 3 or 4 will make your paper sound more academic. Let's take a look at the next problem, passivity. Using indirect sentences or passive language. Let's take a look at the solutions. So you can use direct sentences, and you can use clear, confident, and assertive language. So let's take a look at some examples of the passive voice. Mistakes were made by us. We want to change this to the active voice. We made mistakes. Another example of the passive voice is, traces of ice have been discovered on the surface of Mars by scientists. We want to change this to the active voice. Scientists have discovered traces of ice on the surface of Mars. And one last example here. A decision to vote on the issue was made by the committee this week. And let's simplify that by changing it to the active voice. This week, the committee decided to vote on the issue. The next solution we'll talk about is to use clear, confident, and assertive language. Here's an example. It has come to my attention that there is a vast proliferation of undesirable vegetation surrounding the periphery of this facility. So we don't want to sound like a dictionary or a thesaurus. We want to sound educated, and that comes from your content and how you structure your paper, not by looking through the thesaurus and picking out the best sounding words. It's best to have clear, confident, and assertive language like this. I have noticed many weeds growing around the building. So less is more in our academic papers. Informal words. So this is using words that we use when we talk to our friends. The solution is simple, to use formal words. So let's take a look at a chart again. On the left, we will see the informal words, and on the right, we will see the formal options. So let's take a look at the first example, a bit difficult. We can change that to somewhat difficult. A lot of studies found, so we want to avoid a lot, or a lot of, or lots. Instead, we can say many, or several, or we can use a number like 8 studies found. And then you can use a citation. If you use a number, it'll give credibility to your research. Isn't, can't, and doesn't. So we know that we're not supposed to use contractions in our academic papers. Instead, we'll say is not, cannot, which is one word, and does not. Also. Also is a word that we use a lot. Probably too much. So there are more academic words we can choose, like moreover, further, in addition, as well as. So is also a word that's overused. Let's take a look at some other alternatives, like therefore, or as a result. Good is a very vague word, and it doesn't communicate very much at all. Instead, you can say beneficial or useful or prime, as in a prime example. Show. More academic choices would be illustrates, demonstrates, or reveals. Things or stuff. These words should be avoided in your academic papers. Instead, you should explain the things and the stuff you're referring to. Maybe they're concepts or ideas, or maybe they're items. Just. We should eliminate this word in our academic papers. Perhaps you could use only. So on, etc., and so forth. So usually a list of 3 items is enough. And if you do want to use the same idea as so on, etc., and so forth, you could say and alike. So I have read books and papers with some informal language that's listed here, but it is best to avoid it in your academic papers, and to choose more formal papers. Sometimes it can be confusing, like if you're writing a reflection. They are typically more casual and more personal, but it is still best to choose more formal words. Our last common problem we'll discuss is intensifiers. Intensifiers are words that give emphasis to a statement. So the solution is to choose one stronger word. So let's take a look at what intensifiers are so we can avoid them. They're words like very, extremely, really, too much, so much, completely. So on the left, we have our intensifier, and then on the right, we can choose the one stronger word to fit our meaning. So extremely important. Instead, we would choose crucial or critical or vital. Completely wrong. Instead, we would say inaccurate, incorrect, mistaken. Extremely smart. We would say brilliant. Very small. We would say tiny, minuscule, minute. Or if it's a consequence, we can say insignificant. Or we can say trace amount. There are many more options. Okay, now we're going to do a quiz. Just a fun little quiz to remind us of what we've talked about so far. It's all multiple choice, so you can go ahead and get out a piece of paper and a pen, and you can choose A, B, C, or D. So it could be one of them, or it could be all of them. So let's take a look at the first problem, repetition. So how do you fix this problem? Do you A, choose a synonym, B, repeat important words, C, eliminate the word, or D, change your sentence? What do you choose? Yes, A, C, and D. Choose a synonym, eliminate the word, or change your sentence. Let's look at redundancy. How do you fix this problem? Do you A, eliminate words that repeat ideas? B, eliminate unnecessary ideas? C, eliminate ideas that are repeated? Or D, eliminate controversial topics? What do you think the correct response is? Yes, A and C. Eliminate words that repeat ideas and eliminate ideas that are repeated. Exaggerated language. How do you fix this problem? Is it A, exaggerate your words to prove your point? B, explain your points accurately? C, add extra words to meet your instructor's word count? Or D, explain your point with lots of words so your instructor will understand? What is your answer? Yes, B, explain your points accurately. If you want to reach your instructor's word count, the best way to do that is by using clear, concise language and to increase your word count with content, not filler. Wordiness. How do you fix this problem? Is it A, add extra words to explain your idea really well? B, add extra words to meet the word count? C, choose one word instead of 3 or 4? Or D, adding extra words to show your instructor that you're a great writer? What's your answer? Yes, C, choose one word instead of 3 or 4. Passivity. How do you fix this problem? A, use the passive voice. B, use direct sentences. C, use clear, confident, and assertive language. Or D, use timid words so you don't sound aggressive. What is the correct answer? Yes, B and C. Use direct sentences. Use clear, confident, and assertive language. Informal words. How do you fix this problem? Do you A, informal words keep your paper casual? B, use a lot in your paper? C, use less words? Or D, use formal words? The correct answer is yes, D, use formal words. And the last one, intensifiers. How do you fix this problem? Do you A, words like very, extremely, and completely make your paper stronger? B, intensifiers will show your instructor what you're saying is very important. C, choose one stronger word. Or D, choose extra words to prove your point. The correct answer is yes, C, choose one stronger word. Now let's touch on transition words. So transition words connect one idea to the next. I'm going to give you a list of examples of situations when you would use transition words. So when you're adding an idea, when you're introducing an idea, when you're referring to an idea, when you're expanding on a similar idea, when you're starting to explain an opposite idea, a cause or a reason, or effect or result, and finally, conclusion. So I'm going to talk about a few of these. So addition. So these are some examples. So not only this, but that as well. Additionally, in addition to this, as well as, furthermore, further, moreover. So those last three there, furthermore, further, and moreover, they kind of add to your idea and also expand your idea. So they kind of take it up a notch. Introducing a point. So here are some suggestions as an illustration, such as, and such as is usually found in the middle of your sentence and it has no punctuation around it. There's not a comma before it. There's not a colon after it. It's just part of your sentence without any punctuation. Notably, to illustrate, by way of example, for example, especially, for instance. And with especially, if you're adding that point on to the end of your sentence, the comma would come before especially. For example, I like seeing the animals at the zoo, especially the pandas. So I'm introducing a little point, adding a bit more information, and so my comma would come before especially the pandas. Conflicting ideas. We have however, conversely, despite, on the other hand, in contrast, while, and yet, whereas, and summation. So usually when we think of summation, we think of the last paragraph of our paper, but there can be times that we use a word like at the end of a paragraph when we're going to write our concluding sentence or at the end of a section. So you just want to make sure that you're using these words when you're actually finishing a point and summarizing your idea. So we have consequently, overall, as previously noted, in summary, in conclusion, as mentioned above, To summarize, as noted, given these points, so when we're using a word like this, for example, in conclusion, we were at a wedding and the pastor kept saying, in conclusion, and then he would talk some more. Then he would say, in conclusion, and then he would talk some more. So it got a little bit confusing. So make sure in your paper, when you're getting ready, when you're using these cues here, that you are going to conclude, and it is a final sort of summation of your points. Otherwise, your instructor will be confused. Okay, a word about transitions. So use a variety of transition words. Sometimes we have our favorites, but it's good to have a sheet handy to help you think of other transition words. You don't want to get stuck with the common problem of repetition. So expand your academic vocabulary. So use a dictionary to look up new words, and be sure that you ask yourself, how do you use them? And as I mentioned before, I'm the International Educational Assistant, and there is a IELTS preparation. There's an IELTS test that ESL students can take, and there's a preparation here. So IELTSBuddy.com, they have some activities on how you can build your academic words. And so I think that would be good for international students as well as domestic students. So, do you have any questions? If you do, you can email me. There's my email address, sbreckert@mhc.ab.ca, and my college telephone number. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.